So Kim, thank you so much for your time. Here we are in part 2 of our conversation, and I want you to continue to tell me about the early years of your development as an actor, and complete that story about how you were working with these two professionals, and one showed you how to present yourself on stage.
Walk a stage and
exactly. Continue that story for me.
Okay, so first I was a theater artist with arts and culture, and it's a terrible thing. I'm terrible with names, but he was in, like, the guy who ran it was in, him and Miss Jeanette. They were in like a lot of early movies with Ruby Dee and Ozzie Davis, and they did plays in Broadway. And Miss Jeanette, we became very close. I was the only one she allowed to call her the General, because she was the General. When she didn't like what somebody was doing, she'd take that cane and bang it on the floor. No, no. But I was lucky. She didn't do that to me.
Right.
And I worked, that's why I met Levy Lee Simon. I don't know if you all know Levy Lee. He was a wonderful actor, and now he's a brilliant playwright.
Yeah.
And he always told me that he said I was the only actress at those early days that I would never stop. If you didn't tell me, I would always be making choices, because that was my training. And he was always saying he was always in awe of me, because the way I would come in with something new, because if the director or Miss Jeanette didn't tell me, okay, keep that, I'm trying something else to see if it worked. And it was a great compliment to hear from him, you know, like probably 30 years, 20 years later, whatever.
Yeah.
So she gave me an opportunity to be in a couple of plays, and then Roger Furman had put out a call for Rashomon, the Japanese play.
Yeah.
So I had this sultry picture. It was very sultry. And I sent the picture in, and he called me in, and I got the job.
Wow.
And that was like really the first time I had to put on like full costume. I had a really good Japanese girlfriend at the time, and she came up and she let me hold her kimono.
Yeah.
And she did the makeup for me so that I looked Japanese. And that was like, I mean, all the plays I did were wonderful, but that like opened me up.
Yeah.
That's when I really, even though I had been doing characters,
right,
that was really my step into the other side.
Yeah.
To play a Japanese woman on stage in Rashomon. Oh my God.
Yeah.
That was, and Roger was such a character. He started out, he was a designer, and he worked, him and Diana Sands were like really close.
Yeah.
And he always wanted to do theater. And I'm not sure if what his background was, but he knew what he was doing. Even though Roger used to clean the theater or lick envelopes while he was directing. And a lot of times, after he would stage us, he didn't even look up. He would listen while he was working, and he would say, "Oh, I don't believe that."
Yeah.
He knew whether you were being organic or not.
Yeah.
And that's something I always try to be. I really try to be as honest and organic as I can, you know, and I always try to make the character have an arc, so that they start somewhere, and by the end of the play, they change. And
right. You let the character evolve.
Yes, and right. And a lot of times it's easier when you have a great playwright or a great play. And sometimes you gotta put everything in it when it's not there. If it's not on the page, they say it's not on the stage. But a lot of times you still have to put something on there. Like, you know, like in, they say the smallest parts are the hardest.
Yeah.
But like when you don't have anything to do, you still have to be that character. You know, even if you don't have lines or you're in the background, you still have to be in the character and do things that the character would do. Well, you know, being an actor is, you have to have some kind of confidence to get on the stage and expose yourself that way, you know, so I just was getting affirmations. Yeah. And I think I skipped something, because Woody King, I went to work for Woody King part-time, as a usher.
And this is early on.
This is while I was in college.
Yeah.
Before Miss Jeanette and Roger. And I got my first job in Henry Street Settlement in a children's play that Chanel directed. And we were a black circus family. And
Yeah.
Anna Hosford played my mother. And the only thing I could do was cartwheels, but they loved that. And I had balloons in my hair. That was my very first professional paying piece.
That was
And-
your very first professional paying job.
Right, was at Henry Street Settlement, and then Woody saw me, and he really, I must say, Woody really supported me.
Yeah.
He gave me a lot of great stuff. He used to say I was a great actress, and he got mad later on when I wasn't pushing the acting as hard, and I was trying to produce more and direct. But I worked with some great people.
Yeah.
Some very great people, and I did at least 6 plays with Woody.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
But
I played all kind of characters, and that's probably part of is when I did that first play,
Yeah.
professional play, and you know, when people come up and affirm that they love you or they like your work or whatever, that keeps the confidence going.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we all, not gonna say all, but most actors still get a little nerves before they go on. I know I do.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that's why you have to have I believe you have to have a good, solid technique, because preparation is half the battle before you go on stage. You know, that's why, like they say, half hour. You know, a lot of actors, especially later on in life, the younger, they would get mad at me because, you know, they'd be in the back running their mouth at half hour. And I would say, hey, this is half hour sacred time. Y'all got to shut up, you know, because it's time to prepare. You got to go inside and do the breathing. They used to get mad at me, but that's how I work.
Right.
That's how I was trained.
Yeah.
To prepare yourself, you know, before you get in character, you know, and then you let it go, because now you just be.
Right.
You just have to be it.
Now, let's stay in your college years and how you developed right after college. What were you doing at that time?
That's when, after college is when I was working with Miss Jeanette as a theater artist. And
Yeah.
as a theater artist for her, I assisted her in everything. And also I did plays with her.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that's where I really got like the training on how to produce and put together, you know, plays and present. But that was like the beginning.
Right.
And also
right.
working for Woody. Then I worked also while I was in college. I worked 2 summers. I worked at the Public Theater. I did. I was a property mistress for Mondongo, directed by Dean Irby, and that was kind of all-star cast too.
Yeah.
And so that was great to be around, and that was the mobile. So we went
Right.
around.
You went around.
And that was great to be even behind the stage.
Yeah.
And I was one of those type of actresses, like, then I got a job there when Color Girls moved from Woody, because it first was with Woody King.
Right, right.
And I was ushering. I got to see that every night. Then when it moved to the public, I became a receptionist at the front desk. And so I would sneak upstairs and watch them rehearse. It was not all the same actresses, but
Right.
and I could see that play, or a lot of plays. I would go back 3, 4, 5 times, you know, because I'm studying the acting and all of that. So
Now,
that
how
helped.
did that particular play? Because there's so many characters. There's a lot of vignettes going on.
Yeah, I ended up doing that on the road.
But I don't want to get to that part yet.
Oh, you remember?
I want to
Okay.
get to when you were the usher and watching the performances. Like you said, you went multiple times. I want to get what you took from that experience.
Well, I took I guess how they created their characters,
Right.
You know, the end product, and that helped a lot to see the boldness, because it meant I could be bold,
Right.
you know,
Right.
and of course Zaki's piece was a groundbreaking,
Absolutely.
ground changer, you know,
Yes.
everything. So it was moving every night.
Right, and
know.
you had a front seat. To,
Oh yeah. Well,
to
I'd be in the
performance.
back, but it wasn't a big theater. But
Right,
you know,
right.
Yeah,
And
but
you
I
were-
watched it a lot. Believe me. And
Yeah.
then to see the metamorphosis move from this small theater at Woody's, Scott, they moved it to the public, and
Right.
to see what they did there, and the lighting and the different choices. That's
Exactly.
basically, it's all about choices.
Yeah.
And to see what choices the actresses made was very, I mean, Trezana Beverly, there was some great
There was some
actresses,
great actresses in there.
you
Oh,
know.
absolutely.
So that was just phenomenal, you know. And
Yeah.
then, I mean, the watch is always great. But then when you're on the stage with great actors, they make you be better,
Right.
you know.
Right.
And then when you allow yourself the freedom and trust, well, you do the homework, you know, you go home and you really work on it and you make choices. You know, and you bring your choice in and you let the director tell you whether it works or not. You know,
Right.
there's some actors that they want the director to tell them everything. But that's not my training. My training is you make a choice and you stick to it until the director says, and you know, they would get mad at me because they like my work, but if you don't tell me to keep that, I'm gonna bring in something new the next day.
Right.
Because that's, like I said earlier, is my training.
Right.
But choices is a very important thing because it's great for auditions, especially, you know, if you get you don't get a chance to read the play, which you should, or the film script or whatever, you should try to do that. But sometimes you know, you get a call the night before and they email you the sides and you have to go in at 10 or 11 o'clock the next day. So if you don't work on it and make choices, and you know, when I'm training actors, rhythm is very important.
Right.
Because
Right.
each character has their own rhythm.
Right.
You know, and that's why I mentioned earlier about color. Some characters are orange, some are yellow, some are deep blue, you know, some are dark, and you know, and that's what I tried to do in my preparation.
Right.
So when you have an audition, you have to make a choice. You can't just come in there and, you know, read lines.
Exactly.
You know.
Exactly. You have to at that juncture be the character.
Right, and what was good too, part of my training, especially in the early years, was Frank Severa's Writer's Workshop.
Right.
I used to do it, and then back then it was far. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
not.
and this is one of the iconic
Right.
theater companies.
And he was on 125th Street
Yes, in
too.
Harlem,
So my
exactly.
corridor in college, because I came from City College, was 125th Street. You had Roger Furman on Lenox Avenue.
Right.
And you had Arts and Culture, and I forget which street. They were on 125th, but I forget which corner. And then Roger Furman in the middle of the block on 125th Street, you know. And back then, they had some of the baddest writers. I mean, professional, great writers came through there.
Yeah.
And that was another way you test your craft, and you have to make choices. Because you have to do a reading, and usually you only have 1-2 rehearsals maybe, and then you have to read the play. So that was a great thing too to make. In the short time, I had to make a choice and stick to it, and
Yeah.
that was great training. And out of that, I got Miss Ann Don't Cry No More on 42nd Street, the Black Theater Alliance directed. Well, actually, it was at the Black Theater Alliance, but it was produced by Frederick Douglass Creative Arts Center.
Right.
And Bet Howard directed me. And the play was by P.J. Gibson. And Bet Howard was one of the best directors I had in my life. Because the way she directed is how I ended up directing also.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
she really went beat by beat, scene by scene. I really, really loved working with Bet Howard. I think she was one of the best directors I ever had in my career,
Yeah.
really.
So now take me to the point in your life where you decided that the theater was going to be your profession.
Well, I went to college. That was why,
I'm talking about as a working artist. Bring me to the point where Kim Weston Moran is now a working artist.
Well, you know, that's the trick. I worked quite a bit in the early days, mostly theater. And I went on auditions, but to get deep, I'm like an empath, so I would absorb a lot of shit, and that I didn't need to.
Right.
And so there were times, and I don't blame anybody, but there were times where I dropped out. I would drop out for a year, or I had to work a straight job. And when you got to work a straight job, it's very hard to go audition for film and TV.
Right.
No matter what anybody tells you, if you have a lunch and they say, okay, we'll give you an extra half hour, you rush into the audition.
Exactly.
And you don't really have, and so I would drop out every now and then, and I think that affected my career. You have to really have a plan and be consistent. Plus, I was so militant.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget one time, I don't know, maybe I was in my early 30s, either before I went to LA or after. I went to LA for 2 years.
Well, I want to get to that.
But I remember I went to an audition here in New York, and there was this young, there was always these young white casting directors who thought they knew more than you, like they just got out of Yale or wherever they got out of.
Right.
And I looked young for a long time, thank God.
You still look young, Kim.
Okay, thank you. But I did look young for a long time. So I had this part where it was supposed to be a sophisticated young black woman in a club. And the woman told me she was, this and that. But the lines, when the guy was messing with her, she said, "Get the fuck out my face." And nobody says get the fuck out their face if they're not used to saying it. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
Even no matter how sophisticated she is, she didn't say, "Get away from me."
Right.
She said, "Get the fuck out my face." And when I said it, I said it like somebody,
who really meant it.
Really meant it. And she told me, oh no, that's too black. That's what she told me.
Yeah.
And I tried to explain it to her, but needless to say, I didn't get that job.
Right.
Just like I told you, I said, I hear what you're saying, but a very nice, sophisticated girl is not going to say, "Get the fuck out of me," away from me in a super sophisticated. She's not going to say, "Get the fuck away from me."
Right, exactly.
She's not. She wouldn't even use that word. And the fact that
because if she's going to go there, she's going to
the fact that was written in there tells me a lot about her character.
Right.
I was too much for them.
Yeah.
We sat down the first day, and it was one of those times I was really in my glory. It was like a summer. I don't know. I was teaching. I was teaching adults, and things were good. And so when I came in, I sat down across from her. And when she started asking questions, I noticed a lot of the other actresses weren't saying nothing. But when it came time to do their work, they did a great job. But they were smarter than me. They knew not to show how smart they were.
Exactly.
But I didn't know.
Robert Townsend taught us that lesson in his films earlier.
But I didn't know that because we're having a talk all the time that I've ever had a round table about the play. We all put in our thing.
Exactly.
See, I knew more about Yoruba. I knew more about. I did a lot of reading, I could feel her. So when it came time to direct me, she wouldn't direct me.
Yeah.
And this was a really hard play because it was like kind of on slavery, but it used the islands.
Right.
And I was Hispaniola, which is the Dominican Republic.
That's right.
So I was the mother. That was the first island that they came to. So I was the mother of all the other islands who the women played. But it was very surrealistic. It was just different.
Yeah.
She didn't want to touch me, and
you do that work well. I've seen you.
But the thing about it is, as an actress, no matter how good you are, you get tired of directing yourself.
Well, that's true.
And I have a story about that real quick.
But Kim, hold that story. We're gonna go to part 3.
Already?
Yes, we got it. I tell you, man, you've given me so much, Kim, and I thank you so much for your time. I'm going to stop right now. We're going to go to part 3. I want you to take me to California.
Okay.
And we're going to go to part 3. But Kim, thank you so much for giving me your time, and the stories have been phenomenal. And we're going to go to part 3.